Since we meet here today at America's first Catholic university, I feel it's important to discuss how, as a Catholic in public life, my own personal thinking on these issues has been guided by my understanding of the Church's social teaching. Simply put, I don't believe that the preferential option for the poor means a preferential option for big government.
That was the House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan last week delivering an address at Georgetown University. The Wisconsin Republican has come under fire from some Catholics on the left who claim his budget blueprint goes against the Church's social teaching. 90 Georgetown faculty and administrators sent a letter to Ryan in advance of his appearance there that read, in part, "We would be remiss in our duty to you and our students if we did not challenge your continuing misuse of Catholic teaching to defend a budget that decimates food programs for struggling families, radically weakens protections for the elderly and sick, and gives more tax breaks to the wealthiest few." Joining the panel this week, Wall Street Journal columnist and deputy editor Dan Henninger and columnist Mary Anastasia O'Grady. Okay, Dan, so put it on the table. We're all Catholics here. Grew up with Catholic social teaching.
Right.
To my mind, the news here is not so much Jesuits or Georgetown faculty bite conservatives. That's an old story. The news is that Ryan is willing to mix it up in return. Why is this debate important?
The debate is important, I think, I'll tell you, Paul, it's important for reasons that both Ryan's critics and Paul Ryan cite. Both that letter and his talk said the same thing. 1 in 6 Americans are in poverty. Now, the Great Society started in 1965 creating programs to address poverty.
Lyndon Johnson's
expansion of government. 50 years later, 1 in 6 Americans are in poverty after spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And now Ryan is saying, first, we need some accountability over why that has happened. Second, the two main programs were created then, Medicare and Medicaid, adding in Social Security, the 3 major entitlements. Costs are now so large that they are draining money away from other programs for the poor.
Right.
And Paul Ryan is saying, we have to look at this and start making some decisions about where that is going. And that's what he's asking his critics to come and talk to him about.
This is what the late senator, a Democrat and a Catholic, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, used to make the case to me. He said Democrats should reform entitlements for seniors, Medicare and Social Security, because, as Dan said, they're growing a huge wedge in the federal government. They're going to soak up, as if trends continue, almost all the spending there is, the money there is. And there'd be no money left for child care, for example, or education, or transportation, much less defense. Good liberal purposes.
But Paul, why are you talking about facts? Okay, facts are not what the left has used to grow the government as big as it is right now.
That's one of my flaws.
Yeah, really, you have to stop that. Paul Ryan is freaking these guys out because he is taking their language and using it against them. He talks about how government dissolves the common good of society, how it dishonors the dignity of the human person. They think they own that language, and they think that language justifies big government. And he's saying, no, what you've done with this big government has actually undermined the things that Catholic teaching is supposed to be about.
Hear,
and
hear.
That's what they're upset about. I mean, if Paul Ryan, God forbid, gets the moral high ground here, which they think they own,
yeah,
they're going to have to go back to the facts, and then the facts are
oh
not
no,
going to support their
they don't want to do
position.
that.
Point. I mean, a lot of Republicans and conservatives tend to shrink, at least in my experience, from moral arguments. Look at my failing here, talking practical points and facts. But if you and so you leave a monopoly on the moral rhetoric, which is very powerful in politics, on the left. Ryan is saying, I'm going to meet you on that same battlefield.
Well, he has created a phrase which is the immorality of debt. And in fact, Pope Benedict himself has apparently said that if you live with debt that begins to impede the government's ability to provide basic services, then you are living in untruth. Benedict obviously is talking about Europe.
Right.
And Europe has had a tremendous commitment to social justice and social programs. And we now see Europe as a case study in struggling with trying to pay for commitments that simply they can no longer afford. And I think that is the issue that Paul Ryan is trying to raise, and he's now putting it in moral terms. And there is a moral issue there, and I think he deserves a good faith answer.
Well, if you look at Europe, one of the things that we can see is that when you have a debt crisis and you finally have to do something about it, who suffers the most and first? It isn't the Georgetown faculty. It is the poor who have their budgets and spending cut. I'm afraid I got to give myself the last word here. We're out of time. When we come back, a diplomatic crisis greets Hillary Clinton on her trip